Well, if you're the victim or accused of a crime in Tennessee, prepare to wait a long time for answers.
Yeah, big backlog within the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation's crime labs is cause for concern. But this is not the first time. 10 years ago, we reported TBI had a significant backlog.
Their analysis of blood might take 6 months.
That was 10 years ago. Today, it's almost doubled.
It took 11 months to get the drug analysis back.
And that's even with the opening of an additional crime lab in Knoxville for the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations in 2009. So why the holdup? Well, after months of investigating, tonight News Channel 11's Kylie McGivern brings us answers and reveals the disturbing reality of cases caught in limbo. Kylie?
Josh and Sarah, when we first checked in with TBI 3 months ago, the turnaround time for a toxicology report was 9.5 months. Today, it's a time frame that TBI admits is still far too high.
I just started screaming, and how? This is horrific.
Penelope Pear's father was sitting at a stop sign in Piney Flats before a woman hit him going 45 miles an hour, a crash that led to his death. Like anyone, Pear wanted to know what happened.
I said, was it alcohol? And they said no.
When a blood sample turns up negative for alcohol, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation's toxicology units run the sample through a series of tests to determine if drugs were involved. That was the case for Patricia Ray, who Pear learned through a TBI official toxicology report was driving under the influence of several prescription drugs. But that answer didn't come until 23 weeks after the crash, more than 5 months after her father's death. The Sullivan County District Attorney's Office told me that was the expedited turnaround time.
Justice is not swift in these circumstances.
Not by a long shot, even though the Sixth Amendment guarantees those charged with a crime the right to a speedy trial. First Judicial District Attorney Tony Clark says right now he has a case that's a 4th offense DUI, which is a felony.
The blood results were obtained in May of last year, and we are still awaiting. Most recently, a vehicular homicide case, it took 11 months to get the drug alcohol back.
On top of the obvious strain that puts on both victims and the accused, the problem is this.
Cases have been dismissed or cases have been lost due to the time that it's taken to get the lab results back. It has happened.
Sullivan County DUI prosecutor Benjamin Rowe explained that the statute of limitations on some crimes can be 1 year.
If it's taking 11 months, you can do the math, and that only gives us around a month to determine whether or not it's something that should be presented to a grand jury. That puts a major strain on us.
It's a waiting game Rowe says sets the public up to lose.
The faster results come back, the better.
Because of that backlog, a person could get a DUI, then be charged with another DUI, all while awaiting the results of a toxicology report. I spoke with DUI prosecutor Joe Schultz, who told me that he has several cases like that pending right now.
Drugs is the one that takes a long time, and that's because of the increase of narcotics and prescription drugs.
It's actually legally prescribed drugs that we're finding in most of our DUIs.
And I think that could account for the increased processing time at the TBI laboratory.
While the TBI agrees there is a major prescription drug abuse problem in Tennessee, it denies that the increased number of blood samples requiring testing for DUIs involving narcotics is to blame for the backlog in its crime labs.
The change in law absolutely had an impact on the number of samples being sent to TBI for analysis.
In 2012, the state changed its implied consent law, meaning law enforcement could demand a blood sample if someone were suspected of driving under the influence.
When this law went into effect, it jumped hugely.
TBI provided me with numbers from the past 6 years of blood samples that came through the doors for testing. You can see the spike TBI referred to from 2011 to 2012, a 68% jump in the number of blood samples, the same year the new law passed. TBI's public information officer, Josh Devine, says this can't be a coincidence. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think that the change in the law, that's been almost 3 years ago.
As for the drop in 2013, that same year, the Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional to draw someone's blood without consent. Now, a judge must sign a search warrant in order to do so. I had to ask, with the change in the state's implied consent law, how many times have police pulled over drivers when it comes to the no refusal weekends? through a public records request with Tennessee Highway Patrol, here's what I found. In the Fall Branch District, within the 10 no-refusal checkpoint weekends since 2012, there were 5 instances where troopers made just 1 or no DUI arrests. So statewide, is the law really to blame?
I think the backlog is a product of a couple of things.
Trooper Noah Click says beyond the no-refusal checkpoints and implementing the implied consent law, there's been a big push to up the numbers of DUI arrests overall.
Our numbers have increased dramatically, so there's more BACs for them to conduct.
Not to mention, he says, the point we brought up about the increasing number of prescription drugs involved in DUIs. I reached back out to TBI with the new information. It stands by its claim that the law created the major backlog. Either way, it's people like Pear still awaiting the sentence hearing of the woman who killed her father in a DUI more than a year and a half ago.
I don't want to say moved past, but you have to move forward.
Who are having a tougher time doing just that. TBI says in order to make sure law enforcement agencies have what they need as soon as possible, it brought on 5 additional forensic scientists at TBI's own expense. TBI also began outsourcing some cases last year. Now, Josh, the goal is to get these turnaround times down to 2 months. And within just the last half hour, I learned TBI is making some progress at least. The turnaround time for a toxicology report out of Knoxville now stands at 6 months. That's a 2-month improvement since December.
Kylie McGivern tonight. Kylie, thank you very much. Sarah?